Well, it's all happening, as they would say, in Las Vegas, Elvis Land, and from Elvis Land, or otherwise known as Las Vegas, is the Elvis impersonator of way back. It's Kirk Clyatt. Kirk, how are you?
I am fine, Mike. One of the few things I haven't done is be an Elvis impersonator. And, in this crazy upside down, topsy-turvy world that we've got going on, Vegas, in some ways, is still thriving. Now, convention visitors, they're out of here. About a fourth of the visitors we've normally had, and that's all drive-in traffic. You still get a backup on I-15, the road going to Southern California, Los Angeles on the weekends. But what we are seeing is we're seeing real estate prices here remain very stable. It's a hot market, and one of the reasons is people view Las Vegas as a place they can escape to. If you're going to work from home, it's a great place to work from home. It's been an amazingly hot summer. Every day since July the 1st, we have had a high of at least 100 Fahrenheit. Today, slightly cooler. It's only about 99 Fahrenheit, about 37 Celsius. But people are coming here to get away from the high prices in places like San Francisco and Los Angeles, because all the amenities and all the things that made LA and San Francisco special for right now, they're out of here. So surprisingly, here we are months and months into this pandemic. Much of Vegas still shut down the way it was, say, in 2019. It's not coming back anytime soon. I was talking to some people and I was saying maybe 2022, and they're saying, no, that's way too optimistic. We're probably, the general consensus is, of course, I'm a cheerleader for Las Vegas and Southern Nevada, so I'd like to see it sooner. But the general consensus is Vegas won't be back until probably 2024, 2025.
That's a long time away. And as we get older, our time gets less. So maybe Mexico. Now, speaking of the heat, the polls are heating up. Donald versus Joe. Now, the narrowing. What's the latest poll saying about the candidates? I see that Donald is getting closer and closer.
Well, there's some polls that show that in Georgia, for instance, which is a key battleground state. New poll from WSB Television Atlanta shows Donald with a lead there. But I was just taking a look at an aggregate of all the polls from the last few presidential elections. And to give you an idea, back in 2012, when Romney, the senator now from Utah, was running against Barack Obama, 63 days out, he actually had a slight lead in the polls. And, that didn't work out, of course, for Mitt Romney, losing the election to Barack Obama. He had a 0.5% lead. At this point, everybody talks about 2016 and how Hillary was a sure thing, definitely going to win in 2016. Well, at this point, she was only up by 2.6% in the polls. Now, compare that to what's going on. Let's just look back in time, talk about some blowaway polls. The last real blowaway election we had in the United States was 1984, when that was Ronald Reagan going for his second term against Walter Mondale. And we just do not have the kind of cohesive nation we had in 1984. And I don't know, probably in our lifetimes, Mike, we never will. But that year, Ronald Reagan won 49 states, over 500 electoral votes. And at this point in the polls, he was up by 21.3% against Walter Mondale. So that's background. That's history. Where are we right now? Right now, if you take an aggregation of all the polls, you have Joe Biden in the lead by about 7.1%. But of course, as you know, here in the United States, it's not one man, one vote. The Electoral College decides it all. And we have this crazy system where a vote for senator, say in a state like Wyoming or South Dakota, is worth about 50 times what it is in California, because Wyoming and South Dakota, with very limited population, have the same number of senators as California. So it all is the Electoral College, and that's what we focus on because, of course, Hillary Clinton did win the popular vote in 2016. And right now, it still is well in Joe Biden's favor. But the next 60 days, I would say, would be the most important 60 days probably in the history of the United States since the Battle of Antietam during the Civil War.
Now, Trump's making law and order an issue. Will this hurt Joe and the Democrats?
Well, this is one of those crazy things because Trump is trying to say this is the way it's going to be if Joe Biden is president. Let me check here, Mike. Who's president now? Is that Joe Biden? Is it Barack Obama?
No, it's
Is it
Super
Hillary
Donald.
Clinton?
It's
Oh,
Super
I think it's
Donald.
Donald is president. So isn't he the one who's in control right now of law and order? Oh, I was just taking a quick look at a list of some of his key campaign advisors who were involved in the administration. Let's see, Steve Bannon, Paul Manafort, Rick Gates, Michael Cohen, Michael Flynn, Roger Stone, George Papadopoulos, just to name a few. Oh, those are all convicted felons from the law and order candidates.
No, but let me ask you this though: the majority of states where the anti-law and order issues are rights, all that sort of stuff, or the good family stuff, wouldn't they be in the Democrat-run states or cities?
What you're seeing right now is you're seeing a lot of stuff that you saw. Actually, if you look back into history and look at the rise and fall of the Third Reich, which is an amazing book, you're seeing some of the things that look very reminiscent of the Weimar Republic when you had the Nazis go into more progressive areas of Germany, have demonstrations and say, oh, only we can control it. It's interesting, though, the Nazis, they really never won an election. They just took over power. So we're kind of seeing the same thing happen here. Portland, a very progressive city. And you look at that truck convoy that went in over the weekend. What does that look a lot like? That looks a lot like what we've seen coming out of the Middle East a few years ago in some of those ISIS truck convoys. And then at his press conference, you have Donald Trump justifying paintballs, saying they aren't bullets. Well, I tell you what, I don't know if you, Mike, or our viewers have ever been hit by a paintball. I have.
Don't be a wimp.
Those things hurt.
Don't be a wimp.
No. Paintballs can do some serious damage to you. And to claim that that is not violent and that is a peaceful protest is just, in my view, psychotic. And then you have his interview with Laura Ingraham where he's talking about Antifa flying on commercial jets, all dressed in black. What? And the people controlling Joe Biden. It's a scary time here in the United States. Right now, I would say, of the westernized nations, the scariest place to be. Now, of course, there are places, Yemen, for instance, Sub-Saharan Africa.
Lovely place for a weekend away.
No, Mike, no. There are many places that are worse, but you look at the westernized first world countries, I think I'd rather be in almost any other one than here in the United States right now.
It's amazing, though, the diversity or the contrast between the left and the right, and it is heating up. I don't know whether I want to be around Washington or New York or LA 2 weeks out of the election. It's going to be a very exciting time not to be anywhere near it.
Well, yeah, I think there are going to be fatalities. And I was a TV weatherman for a long time, as you well know. And so I've made mistakes. I have said things that have been wrong before, and never before have I wanted something to be so wrong as to the fact that there are going to be fatalities after this election. Because what could happen is Donald Trump's made such a huge deal about mail-in voting, even though he does, even though Melania, the First Lady, does, that I think on election day, a lot of his supporters will, in fact, vote that day. And so there is a chance, especially in some key battleground states, that on, say, election day, November 3rd, November 4th, you're going to see Trump with a lead. And then as those mail-in ballots come in, that lead tightens and tightens until then Joe Biden's in the lead, which sets up the perfect scenario for Trump to say it's rigged, that there's a fake ballots, that there's ballot stuffing that's been taking place. So there are a whole host of scenarios that are taking place right now. And, it's hard to get complete, accurate information because everything is spun so much by really all parties involved.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, there is a rumor that they've found a couple of thousand postal boxes in the White House basement. Now, I'm not saying anything about this at all, but if you found those several thousand postal boxes in the basement next to the armored personnel carriers and stuff, I mean, what can you say? I mean, obviously, Donald is sneaking out at night, pinching, stealing, nicking these postal boxes and storing them away. It's just terrible.
I am not going to vote by mail. I'm either going to vote probably in person at an early voting site here in Nevada, in Clark County, which is where most of the people live in Nevada. You can vote at any polling location, which I think is a great idea. And of course, there are postal, or rather ballot drop boxes, so you do not have to use the U.S. mail, because while I still think it is relatively secure, there have been so many doubts cast on it. And then you had the Postmaster General, Louis DeJoy, testifying before a House Oversight Committee last week. And Katie Porter, a congresswoman from Southern California, quite impressively asked him, Mr. Postmaster, what is the cost of a postcard, to mail a postcard? He didn't know. What's the cost to mail one of those square invitation, they say a wedding invitation envelope? He didn't know. So here he admitted that he didn't know much about postage stamps. That's kind of like going to a bakery and you say, what's the best ingredients to put into bread? And the baker goes, I don't know. So here you've got clearly a political puppet as the Postmaster General of the United States. So just to be on the safe side, and I would advise anybody in America watching who is going to vote to not mail in their ballots, but to do possibly an early vote, which is, I think, quite safe, or drop their ballot into a special ballot collection box, which will be set up in most municipalities if they aren't already across the nation. You know, Mike, we're into September now, and early voting in some jurisdictions starts the latter part of this month. So voting realistically is really only a couple of weeks away here in the United States. And this really will tell. I think the argument can be made, especially with all the lifetime judicial appointments made by the Trump administration, that 2016 was, in fact, the most important election of our lifetime. But that being said, clearly, this is going to decide the destiny and the future of the United States. And I've pretty much made the decision myself that if Trump wins re-election, this is not the kind of country that I want to spend the rest of my life in. And, well, you're in Australia. I think I can get political asylum, or barring that, maybe some nice beachfront location in Mexico.
Now, this segment has become enormously popular, not for what we want it to be, but your patio, your outdoor area is becoming fast a fashion statement.
Oh yeah, Rate My Sky Room. I think they had over 100,000 views. I had almost 80,000 views on a tweet. So that's on Twitter. I think it's Rate My Sky Room is what it is. You can look it up. And what this guy does, he's become amazingly popular. He's got hundreds of thousands of followers that he takes screenshots of backgrounds of Skype rooms and rates them. And so we were good enough last time to get a 7 out of a 10. We've moved the plants over, so maybe we can move it up to an 8 this time on Rate My Sky Room. But still, it's great that we're out there, and I estimate just the people that saw the tweets from me and from Rate My Sky Room, I'm estimating to enjoy this ambiance of our outdoor living area here in the Mojave Desert, probably hit at least 250,000 people. So
wow.
That's good to see.
That's amazing. And you failed to mention that the United States synchronized swimming squad, after your performance in the pool, they said, please apply for a gig with us. I mean, you look stunning, pirouetting in the water, and it was just fantastic.
Should we wrap things up by having me go in again?
No.
Totally up to you. It's totally up to you.
No, this is a family show. All right.
Okay.
All right. Kirk Clyatt in Las Vegas, thank you very much.
Always a pleasure. Look forward to next time, Mike.